purpose of war. You gotta understand, I'm a teacher, I'm a school teacher, I'm a science teacher, but I'm a warrior. The purpose of war is real simple, to kill and to destroy. Purpose of war, doesn't matter whether you're a cook or a medic, it doesn't matter whether you're a mechanic, is to kill and destroy. Thank you. I'm a warrior, ladies and gentlemen. You need to understand that before we start out. There's something else, and I have a distinct pleasure. A member of my team from Gulf War I that cleaned up the depleted uranium mess, her parents are in the audience tonight. Mr. and Mr. Kessler, why don't you stand up, please? Their daughter, Sergeant Barbara Andres, is serving in the Gulf right now in Gulf War II. She went to Gulf War I. She was with us when we did all of this mess. It's the first time I've had a set of parents from my team in the audience. War. I went to Vietnam before I even shaved. Spent 2 years in Vietnam dropping bombs out of B-52s before I even shaved. When I came back in June of 1971 from Vietnam after my second tour, the first place I went to was a VFW hall. My dad picked me up at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, and we went back to the VFW hall in Libertyville, Illinois, because it was real simple. My parents' best friends and my best friend's parents were having their 25th anniversary, and everybody I knew and everybody I related to was at the VFW hall for a party. So I came back from war, my last combat mission, and walked right into a VFW. So a little different. When you go to war, there are no winners, there's only losers. It doesn't matter if you're on the winning side or if you're on the losing side. You are physically changed forever. There's a whole bunch of us in this room, Vietnam vets sitting over there, Gulf War vets sitting all over, it's parents of vets. You're changed physiologically and psychologically forever, even if you win the friggin' battles. We won the battles in Vietnam, but we lost that sucker. We won the battles in Gulf War I and ejected Saddam out of Iraq and the Iraqis out of Kuwait and almost got him out of Iraq, but we didn't do it. But we lost. And we're back in there again. The purpose of war is to kill and destroy. And everybody loses. We got to remember that. People forget that. What happened in Gulf War I? Well, Gulf War I started because the U.S. baited and switched and got Iraq to invade Kuwait. You got to understand, Kuwait was part of Iraq until we ripped it apart in order to get control over the oil pipelines at the end of the Gulf. Reality is. We also knew at the beginning of Gulf War I that Iraq did, I want to repeat, did possess chemical and biological munitions, and that included weaponized anthrax. How do we know that? Because the United States gave it to them and we kept the receipt. Flat out happened. There's a lot of stuff people don't talk about. They talked about the atrocities that happened, babies being thrown out of incubators. The Iraqi army arrayed itself along the Saudi-Iraqi border, ready to go in. They weren't there. They were farther back in. So on Thanksgiving Day of 1990, I went to war for the third time. Now, the time before that, I had left for Vietnam for my second tour on Thanksgiving Day of 1969. Now, that's 21 years difference. Most military people only serve 20 years. Okay, you need to understand that. 20 years is a full time. But here I'm going back to war again, starting all over 21 years after I came back for my last tour. And we got over there, and our tasking very specifically was several things. Number one, I was with the 12th Preventive Medicine Detachment. We were the Theater Public Health and Occupational Health Department. But I was also assigned to a team called Bowers Raiders. We were the Theater Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Warfare Special Operations and Teaching Team. We were it. The team had been put together from a whole group of us that had worked together for many years, primarily from universities. Because we taught emergency medicine, we were all paramedics. We did emergency rescue, we taught hazardous materials, and we were scientists and engineers and doctors, and pharmacologists and toxicologists. And we had a problem. Now, in December of 1990, the first problem started to show up. And what happened is because we knew that Iraq possessed chemical and biological munitions, we knew they were weaponized, we knew where they were, we made a conscious decision at the command headquarters to blow them up in place. This is the first thing that started getting us. Now, their daughter's sitting up at KKMC all the way up in the front end, and this stuff is flying in on them. But we blew them up in place. Now, this is Schwarzkopf's autobiography on page 390. He actually wrote it up about our decision. And we told him at that time, when you blow this stuff up, it's going to come back on you, because you can't hit an ice cube with a hammer, which is what we did when we put explosives next to chemical and biological munitions, and destroy them. They just get spread all over, and everybody got sick. Really nice. Now, when you move a military or destroy an infrastructure, you've got hazardous materials all over the place. You know, we got organics and inorganic compounds, we got heavy metals, we got radiological materials, just like it's scattered all over the city. And when you blow up that stuff, it just gets released on everybody. When you move the army and you release this stuff, it goes all over the place, and you get a toxic wasteland. This stuff is turning out really good here. Then we had all of these crazy immunizations. Now, when we got activated, the majority of the reservists and National Guard, along with the active duty, the doctors had not maintained our immunizations. Remember, you're supposed to get a shot every so many years and keep up with that? They'd forgot about that. So what we did is we stripped everybody down, the guys down to their shorts and the girls to their shorts and their bras, marched them through a line, gave them 2, 4, 6, 8 shots and a gamma globulin GG up in the upper butt. And they got sick. Things are not good because the military had not maintained the medical care and status of the troops. And they still are not doing it today. They are not doing it today. When you go to war, it's a toxic wasteland. Now, what happened on top of this whole toxic wasteland is the United States decided to use uranium munitions. Now, you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a warrior. If I got to go to war tomorrow morning to defend this nation, I will go back to war and I will kill in a heartbeat. Just like that gentleman will and like that gentleman will back there. Right, sir? No two ways about it. But when we use uranium munitions, we cross the line. There's a big difference. A big, big difference. So we got up there and I started asking questions. What are these things and what's happening? Okay? A lot of problems. Well, the ground war commenced and it happened. And unfortunately, the majority of casualties in Gulf War I were due to friendly fire. That means we shot our own. We killed our own. And they were due to the use of uranium munitions. Flat out, that's what happened. So all of a sudden, right after the ground war happens, you know, we're into that last week of February, first week of March of 1991, all of a sudden I get called over to the command headquarters. This is down at Eskan village, south of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And my commander and I got over there and the general says, "Hey Doug, you got to go clean up the DU mess." And I go, "Uh-oh, the order's here. Headquarters, U.S. Army Forces, Central Command, ordered me to do it. Signed for the commander, the Chief of Staff, David Mallory." So we went up there to clean it up. And when I got up there, I got to KKMC. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand, their daughter, Barbara, was already up there. They're cleaning up this uranium-contaminated equipment. They're picking up the DU casualties with basically nothing but boots, shirts, and shorts. Is that correct, ma'am? Yes. No warnings, no nothing. No training, nothing at all. Now, myself and my team got up there, and they've heard this story, and it's been published all over. All of a sudden, hey, these 3 guys came in gas masks and chemical suits and all boosted. That was us. You've heard this story from day one. They had not told their daughter and anybody else of the hazards. They hadn't told anybody else of the hazards in the whole friggin' Army.
Are they telling them now?
No, not at all.
What is KKMC?
KKMC is King Khalid Military City. It's in northern Saudi Arabia, about 30 miles from a place called Hafar al-Batan. It's about 50 miles out of Iraq, right near the triangle in the dead center up northern Saudi Arabia. That's where we marshaled 7th Corps and 18th Corps together when they end up doing. The 7th Corps made what we called the Hail Mary play up and around. Well, you know, the reason the Hail Mary play worked is because of demunitions, but the other thing was the Iraq military wasn't arrayed along the border. Now, if they had been there, as they said when they justified the war, they never would have been able to do that because they would have hit them right away. Anyhow, we have all our collection, all of our contaminated stuff on one side of the road, and they're sleeping on the other side of the road in the tents. That's it. And the wind's blowing all over the place. And they got all the other contaminants coming back on them. We started to identify and collect, secure. We started to process, decontaminate. Now, you want to talk about something. We're in there scraping up brains and body parts with 6-inch putty knives because they're splattered all over the place. Because when this goes off, you have the uranium munitions going off, you have all the other ordnance that goes off, you got all the contaminants. It ain't a nice day. It's definitely not a nice day in River City. Now, what happens with a uranium round? Each individual uranium round is a solid rod of uranium-238, contaminated with plutonium, neptunium, and americium, and when some of the stuff got processed out of the reactors, uranium-236. Now, the solid rod of uranium, the tank round is 3/4 of an inch in diameter, 18 inches long, and is over 10 pounds of solid uranium. When that thing flies out of the bore of the gun, the tube, it immediately catches fire because you got a plastic sabot, a cup that faces forward. When it comes out, the sabot falls away. It's a cup, and all you got is a giant uranium dart. It's like, I don't know, they got a dartboard out here in the post? Probably do. It's the same thing, except this thing is 18 inches, 3/4 of an inch, and 10 pounds. Now that thing is flying at 1,100 meters per second, and it weighs over 10 pounds. Now, it's already on fire the minute it leaves the bore of the gun. If you've seen the videos, or you'll see the videos of Visible Wars, Hidden Wars, or the training videos, you'll see this. Now, that thing's on fire. When that round hits anything, it breaks up and fractures and creates what we call shrapnel. Okay, fine dust particles, and we call it spalling or shrapnel, whatever you have. Now, this stuff is all on fire. So it's like taking a handful of marbles, lighting them on fire, and throwing them across this room at high velocity. Anything in there that can blow up from concussion goes kaboom. Anything that can ignite and go burn and blow up goes kaboom. And you got a catastrophic destruction. And when these guys fire around, it doesn't matter who it is or what's happening. They get in the target, and they fire 1, fire 2, fire 3. Man, I had Abrams tanks for friendly fire. They hit 4 and 5 times. That's 50 pounds of uranium scattered in and around inside the vehicle, and we wonder why they didn't live. And we were wondering why their daughter and all the rest of the guys in their unit were having problems getting sick by the time we got up there, with the rashes and the respiratory problems and everything else. Well, we got up there within a few hours, we were getting sick with the rashes and the respiratory. So I immediately ordered medical care for everybody. I called back to the command, to the doctor in charge that I work for at the command headquarters, said, you got to get medical care for everybody. And we ordered medical care. And it never happened. Now their daughter's unit had all this stuff contaminated, and so I ordered direct medical care for those guys immediately through the commander and Lieutenant Steele while they're still in theater, and it never happened. And then they got back to New Jersey and went on down to Wilmington, and they finally got in touch with Dr. Asif Durakovich. U.S. Army Colonel Asif Durakovich, the #1 expert in the Army on this stuff. And he started giving medical care to that whole unit and found out they were all sick. You know Mad Dog and Blue? Some of the other guys? Okay. There are some of the other guys who worked with us, and they're, as you know, the guys that died from cancer, lung cancer. And everybody was sick. And we ordered the medical care. It took our team, and we had a whole bunch of different groups. Primarily, it was my team, a handful of us, plus the 144th and their daughter. It took us 3 months to clean up 24 vehicles for shipment back to the United States. That's 15 Abrams tanks and 9 Bradley fighting vehicles. And we buried the rest of the junk in the desert. We dug a big hole, and Dave Kiefer and his guys took this stuff and they pushed this stuff into a hole. Unexploded ordnance, contaminated equipment, destroyed Bradley fighting vehicles, and Americans. I couldn't get them out. We couldn't scrape them out. Well, this is all real nice and dandy. We got a real problem. Well, before Gulf War I, there was hardly any information on how to clean up DU. They had Rich Flazar, who by the way is now dead from lung cancer, lymphoma, wrote a pamphlet in September of 1990, Guidelines for Safe Response to Handling, Storage, and Transportation Accidents Involving Army Tank Munitions or Armor which Contain Depleted Uranium. And in there he said the limits, maximum limits on alpha, fixed alpha, is 200 counts per minute. Well, when we finally got good, adequate, effective radiac equipment, it's up around 15,000 to 1 million. And the maximum, and the removable was none, but heck, you know, that's blowing all over. If I show the slides, you've seen pictures of the dust and the dirt and all that stuff blowing around, right? Okay, now the fixed beta and gamma, the maximum was 0.05 millirads per hour. We were measuring at 300 millirads per hour. And it still goes on like that. Well, we got up there, and now, you know, in contrast before the war, when Colonel Day had sent the information through the U.S. mail, now I get official memorandums down through the chain of command. We're working for Schwarzkopf and then Gus Pagonis. Schwarzkopf left and Gus Pagonis took over. And I got 2 memorandums. First memorandum I got came from Colonel Gregory Lyle at the Defense Nuclear Agency, and this is what he sent. This came official military chain of command. Quote, as explosive ordnance disposal, ground combat units, and civil populations of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq come increasingly into contact with DE ordnance, we must prepare to deal with the potential problems. Toxic war souvenirs, political furor, and post-conflict cleanup are only some of the issues that must be addressed. Alpha particles, that's uranium oxide dust, from expended rounds is a health concern.